Is time just an illusion according to Buddhism?
Time is one of the most fundamental concepts that govern our lives. We measure it with clocks, define it with schedules, and structure our entire existence around it. But what if time, the very force that keeps us on track, is not as fixed and real as we think? Is time an illusion? This video seeks to explore this fascinating question, looking at how Buddhism and modern physics converge on the nature of time, and how this ancient wisdom could transform our experience of it. As we embark on this exploration, I invite you to reflect on a crucial question. Have you ever felt like time is flying when you're having fun, but dragging when you're waiting for something? Or perhaps, do you notice how memories of the past seem to be distorted or forgotten over time? These experiences beg the question, does time truly exist? Or is it just a mental construct? Let's dive into this paradox.
Chapter 1. Time as an Illusion, Einstein and Buddhism's Parallels.
Time is often viewed as an unchangeable, linear force, something we can measure with precision, and something that dictates the rhythm of our lives. However, both Einstein's theory of relativity and Buddhist teachings suggest a different perspective on time, one that challenges our conventional understanding. When Einstein said, "Time is an illusion," he was not merely offering a philosophical statement, but rather a breakthrough observation about the very fabric of reality. His theory of relativity suggests that time is not a constant or absolute entity but is instead malleable, influenced by factors like gravity and speed. This notion parallels the Buddhist understanding of time as a fluid, subjective experience, shaped by our perceptions and mental states. Einstein's idea that time could dilate or contract based on one's position in space-time mirrors the Buddhist teachings that time itself is an illusion, inherently subjective and bound to the impermanent nature of the mind. In the Buddhist view, time cannot be grasped as a fixed object, it is a flowing concept, much like a river, and it's the mind that shapes its flow. The Buddha, through his profound insights, spoke of the illusionary nature of time, often using metaphors that emphasized its transitory quality. The past, he said, is like a dream, a fleeting moment that has already passed and cannot be revisited. The future, equally, is unreal, a mere projection of the mind's fantasies and desires, and thus carries no true substance. The only time that exists, according to the Buddha, is the present moment. Yet, paradoxically, the present is fleeting, constantly slipping away. The Buddha described the present as akin to a dewdrop, quickly appearing and just as quickly vanishing. This metaphor underscores the transient and elusive nature of time, reminding us that the present moment is not a permanent, tangible entity but rather a momentary experience, dissolving even as we try to hold on to it. In the same vein, the teachings suggest that our attachment to time, whether to the past or the future, causes suffering, because it keeps us tethered to an illusion, constantly moving away from the only reality that truly exists, the present moment. When we look deeper into both Einstein's theory and Buddhist philosophy, we see a fundamental similarity. They both reject the notion that time exists independently of the observer. Einstein's relativity shows that time is relative to the observer's frame of reference. And this is not dissimilar to the Buddhist teaching that time is influenced by our consciousness. For instance, when we are lost in thought or deeply engaged in a task, time seems to pass differently. Hours can feel like minutes, or minutes can stretch out into what feels like hours. This is because time, in our subjective experience, is a mental construct that changes based on our awareness and focus. This fluidity of time is particularly evident in meditation, a core practice in Buddhism. In deep meditative states, practitioners often report the experience of time fading away entirely. They may feel as though they are timeless, lost in a state of pure awareness, where the boundaries between past, present, and future dissolve. This experience is not just an intellectual understanding but a direct experience that aligns with Einstein's perspective of time being dependent on the observer's perception. The meditation practice, much like Einstein's theory, allows us to break free from the rigid constraints of linear time, offering a glimpse into a reality where time no longer holds the same power over us. The perception of time in Buddhism is also intricately connected to the idea of impermanence. Or in Nietzsche, everything in the universe is in constant flux, nothing remains the same. Not even time itself. In Buddhist philosophy, this transience is seen as both a truth to be accepted and a lesson in letting go. Time, in this sense, is a tool for understanding the impermanence of all things. Just as a flower blooms and fades, so too does time bloom in each moment and fade as quickly. This realization of time's impermanence encourages us to live fully in the present, free from the burden of past regrets or future anxieties. In the modern world, we often find ourselves entrapped by the tyranny of the clock, constantly rushing from one task to the next. Always thinking ahead, always running out of time. Yet, Einstein and the Buddha both invite us to step outside this linear conception of time. They encourage us to embrace the present moment as the only true reality, to release our attachment to both the past and the future. In doing so, we may experience a sense of timelessness, much like the moments in meditation, where the boundaries of time dissolve and we are left with pure awareness. In this way, Einstein's theory and Buddhism come together in a beautiful harmony. Both reveal that time, as we know it, is not fixed but is instead a construct shaped by our perceptions. The only reality we can truly access is the present, and by embracing this moment with full awareness, we can transcend the illusion of time. Through this understanding, we not only gain a deeper insight into the nature of the universe but also find the freedom to live more fully, more mindfully, and more in tune with the flow of life itself.
Chapter 2. Quantum Mechanics. A window into the mind's relationship with time.
In quantum mechanics, the boundary between time, space, and consciousness begins to blur in ways that challenge our fundamental understanding of reality. For centuries, we have viewed time as a linear progression, one moment following another, unyielding and fixed. But recent advancements in quantum physics reveal a much more complex and interconnected universe, one where time and reality are not as rigid as they appear. Quantum entanglement and the double-slit experiment both illustrate phenomena that suggest our conventional views on time, observation, and reality are incomplete. Quantum entanglement is one of the most perplexing phenomena in modern physics. It occurs when two particles become linked in such a way that the state of one particle is directly correlated with the state of the other, no matter how far apart they are in space. If one particle is measured, the state of the other particle instantaneously changes, even if it is light years away. This bizarre instantaneous connection between particles seems to defy the constraints of space and time, as information appears to travel faster than light. This challenges the classical concept of linear time, where cause and effect are bound by temporal constraints. If particles can influence each other beyond space and time, could time itself be an illusion? As both Buddhism and Einstein have suggested, quantum entanglement hints at a deeper, interconnected reality where events are not separated by time but exist as part of a unified whole, transcending our traditional perception of temporal flow. This concept parallels Buddhist teachings, where the mind is seen as the lens through which we perceive reality. In Buddhism, the idea that time is an illusion is not merely a philosophical abstraction but an experiential truth. The Buddha taught that our perception of time is shaped by our mental conditioning, or sankharas, which are the mental formations that shape our experience. According to Buddhist thought, our perception of the world is not an objective reflection of external reality but a subjective construct influenced by our emotions, desires, and habitual patterns of thought. The Buddhist teachings suggest that our minds create the illusion of time by attaching to past experiences and projecting future outcomes. In this way, the mind divides an otherwise continuous, fluid experience into discrete moments, giving rise to the perception of time as something linear and measurable. The double-slit experiment, another cornerstone of quantum mechanics, further complicates our understanding of reality. In this experiment, particles like electrons are fired through a barrier with two slits. When observed, the particles behave like discrete particles, passing through one slit or the other. However, when unobserved, the particles behave like waves, creating an interference pattern on the other side. This suggests that the very act of observation alters the nature of reality, and the wave function collapses into a particle only when measured. This phenomenon raises profound questions about the nature of time and observation. It implies that the observer plays a central role in shaping the reality we perceive, much like the Buddhist concept of sankharas, where the mind shapes our experience of time and space. Buddhism teaches that the world we perceive is a mental construction, shaped by the mind's filters and biases, just as the double-slit experiment shows that the observer influences reality. Buddhist philosophy posits that our minds create the boundaries of time and space. When we are caught in the web of attachment and desire, time appears to stretch and bend in response to our emotional state. For instance, moments of joy can seem to fly by in an instant, while moments of pain can feel endless. Our mental conditioning, then, is the true force that shapes our experience of time, not some objective reality that exists outside of us. Buddhism encourages mindfulness and awareness of our thoughts and emotions to break free from the illusion of time, to return to a state of pure presence where time no longer holds us captive. The Buddhist teachings on anicca, impermanence, further echo the findings of quantum mechanics. In Buddhism, all phenomena are in constant flux. Nothing remains static or fixed. Not even time itself. The Buddha taught that attachment to time, whether through the fixation on past regrets or the anxiety over future outcomes, only leads to suffering. Time, like all phenomena, is impermanent and fleeting, in the same way that quantum mechanics reveals that particles are not fixed entities but exist in a state of probability. The Buddha teaches that everything, including time, exists in a state of flux. This understanding allows us to detach from the rigid boundaries of time and embrace the impermanence of all things. By realizing that time itself is fluid, we can begin to cultivate a sense of freedom, living more fully in the present moment rather than being trapped by the past or future. Moreover, quantum mechanics and Buddhist philosophy both emphasize the interconnectedness of all things. In the quantum realm, particles do not exist in isolation but are part of a web of relationships that transcend space and time. This mirrors the Buddhist view that all beings and phenomena are interdependent. The concept of pratityasamutpada, dependent origination, in Buddhism teaches that nothing exists independently. Everything arises due to the conditions and relationships surrounding it. Similarly, in quantum physics, the behavior of particles is influenced by the conditions of their surroundings, and their states are interdependent. This interconnectedness suggests that our perception of time as a linear, isolated experience is limited. When we recognize the interdependence of all things, we see that time is not a separate, individual force but part of the web of existence that connects all beings and events. The relationship between the mind and time, as revealed by quantum mechanics and Buddhism, invites us to reconsider how we relate to the world around us. If our experience of time is shaped by the mind and the conditions of our mental state, then by cultivating awareness and mindfulness, we can alter our relationship with time itself, just as quantum physics suggests that observation alters the nature of reality. Buddhism teaches that our awareness can transform our experience of time, allowing us to transcend the limitations imposed by the mind and experience life in its fluid, interconnected wholeness. Both quantum mechanics and Buddhism point to a reality that is far more complex and mysterious than we can fully comprehend. They invite us to embrace the uncertainty and impermanence of life and to live more mindfully, aware that our perception of time and space is not fixed, but shaped by the mind. By exploring these parallels, we can deepen our understanding of the nature of reality and our place within it, and perhaps come to realize that the illusion of time is not something to fear, but something to embrace and explore with curiosity and wonder.
Chapter 3. The Brain's Role in Time Perception, a Mind-Made Reality. The perception of time, as modern neuroscience reveals, is not a simple, linear process. Instead, it is a complex, subjective experience crafted by the brain's intricate networks and influenced by our emotions, memory, and expectations. While time itself may seem like an external, objective reality, our brain constructs a sense of it based on the way it processes sensory information. This subjective experience of time is closely tied to our mental and emotional states, and it often does not align with the linear progression we assume to be the universal truth. This phenomenon is reflected in Buddhist philosophy, which teaches that our perception of time, like everything else, is filtered through the mind's habitual patterns and conditioned responses. Neuroscientific studies have illuminated the brain's role in constructing our sense of time. Researchers at institutions like MIT have found that there are specific regions in the brain that are responsible for processing temporal information. These areas do not simply measure time as an objective constant, but they interpret it based on the input we receive from the world around us. For example, the brain uses sensory cues to judge the passage of time, but how we interpret those cues is deeply influenced by our mental and emotional states. When we are engaged in something exciting or stressful, time can seem to fly by in the blink of an eye. On the other hand, moments of boredom or anxiety can cause time to drag on, creating the illusion of time stretching endlessly. This fluctuation of time perception is not tied to an actual change in time itself, but rather to the way our brain processes our experience. Buddhism offers a profound parallel to these scientific findings, particularly in its teachings on the nature of perception and the mind. The Buddha spoke of the mind's ability to distort our perception of reality, emphasizing that what we experience is not an objective reality but rather a subjective construction shaped by our mental formations, or sankharas. These mental formations arise from our past experiences, emotions, and attachments, and they influence how we interpret everything around us, including the passage of time. According to Buddhist teachings, time does not exist independently of the mind. Instead, our experience of time is shaped by how we relate to it, whether we are clinging to the past, worrying about the future, or lost in the present moment. For instance, when we are caught in anxiety or fear, time seems to move slowly, as if each second stretches out indefinitely. This is because our minds are focused on the anticipation of future events, creating a sense of time dragging. Conversely, when we are deeply absorbed in an activity we enjoy, time seems to disappear, as if hours have passed in the blink of an eye. This experience aligns with the Buddhist understanding that the mind is constantly fluctuating, pulling us in different directions and distorting our perception of time. The Buddhist teachings encourage us to recognize this mental tendency and to develop mindfulness in order to see things as they truly are, without the interference of mental filters. Additionally, Buddhist philosophy teaches that our attachment to time can lead to suffering. The Buddha spoke of the impermanence of all things, including time itself. We often become fixated on the past or future, either longing for what has already gone or anxiously anticipating what has yet to come. This attachment to time, to a fixed sense of past, present, and future, causes us to miss the present moment, which is the only time that truly exists. The Buddhist teachings invite us to live fully in the present, without the constant distractions of past regrets or future anxieties. In doing so, we can free ourselves from the mental constructions that bind us to a distorted perception of time. Neuroscience and Buddhism both highlight the role of the mind in shaping our experience of time. While neuroscience provides insights into the brain's mechanisms for processing temporal information, Buddhism offers a deeper understanding of how mental conditioning and emotional states influence our perception. Both disciplines point to the same conclusion: our experience of time is not an objective reality but a fluid, mind-made construct. Whether we are caught in the past, the future, or the present moment, our perception of time is always filtered through the lens of our mental state. By cultivating awareness and mindfulness, we can learn to transcend the distorted perceptions that arise from our mental conditioning and experience time in its true, impermanent nature. In practical terms, this means that our experience of time can be transformed through mindfulness and meditation. Just as the Buddha taught that the mind can be trained to see things as they are, neuroscience shows that we can also rewire our brains to perceive time in a more balanced way. By cultivating present moment awareness, we can learn to free ourselves from the mental traps that cause time to appear either too fast or too slow. Through meditation and mindfulness practices, we can cultivate a sense of timelessness, where the mind is fully present and the fluctuations of time are no longer a source of stress or distraction. In both scientific and spiritual terms, the study of time perception reveals that time, as we experience it, is not a fixed, universal truth but a product of the mind. Whether we are looking at the brain's neural networks or the Buddhist teachings on mental formations, it becomes clear that our sense of time is subjective and fluid. By understanding this, we can begin to cultivate a more mindful and balanced relationship with time, allowing us to experience life more fully and peacefully.
Chapter 4. Time and Suffering, the Buddha's View on the Illusion of Time.
In Buddhist philosophy, time is intricately connected to suffering, or dukkha. The Buddha taught that the root of suffering lies in our attachment to time, particularly our fixation on the past and the future. We are constantly drawn to memories of what has been, yearning for moments we can no longer control or change. At the same time, we dwell on hopes and fears for the future, projecting scenarios that may never come to pass. This mental preoccupation with time pulls us away from the present moment, the only true moment of existence. In doing so, we miss the richness of the here and now, and this very distraction contributes to the cycle of suffering. The Buddhist teachings on dukkha point out that suffering is not simply an external condition but a mental and emotional state shaped by our relationship with time. When we cling to the past, we are often trapped by regrets or past trauma, replaying events in our minds that cannot be undone. These memories, although they have already passed, continue to shape our experience, preventing us from fully engaging with the present. Similarly, our attachment to the future creates anxiety, as we constantly worry about what might happen, fearing outcomes that may never materialize. This forward-looking anxiety robs us of peace in the present and creates a constant cycle of anticipation and disappointment. The Buddha realized that this attachment to time arises from ignorance, or avidya, which is the fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of reality. We perceive time as a fixed, linear progression, but in truth, it is a fluid construct shaped by our mental conditioning. Our minds are constantly creating and attaching to the idea of time as a measure of existence. But this attachment to past and future is a major source of our suffering. By understanding the impermanent and interconnected nature of all things, we can begin to break free from this cycle of craving and aversion. The key to overcoming this suffering is mindfulness, or sati, the practice of being fully present and aware of the current moment. Through mindfulness, we can cultivate an awareness that allows us to observe our thoughts and emotions without becoming attached to them. In doing so, we start to see that our thoughts about the past and future are just that, thoughts. They are not fixed realities but transient mental formations, fleeting and impermanent.
By acknowledging this, we can loosen our grip on time, recognizing that the past and future are merely constructs of the mind and do not define our present experience. Buddhism teaches that everything, including time, is impermanent, and this impermanence is the key to liberation. When we stop clinging to the illusion of time, we stop creating the mental conditions that cause suffering. The Buddha compared life to a river, constantly flowing and changing. The moment we try to grasp onto a particular point in time, it slips through our fingers, just like trying to hold onto the water in a stream. Time, as we know it, is not something we can control or hold on to. It is a dynamic flow, constantly shifting and changing. When we learn to flow with this current, rather than fight against it, we find peace. By observing our thoughts through the lens of mindfulness, we can begin to dismantle the illusion of time. This practice helps us shift our focus from the past and future to the present, where life is actually unfolding. In each moment, we can find meaning, clarity, and peace. We are no longer at the mercy of our mental projections about what was or what will be. Instead, we embrace the reality of the present moment, which is where true life occurs. The Buddhist teachings on impermanence and mindfulness guide us toward the realization that the present is the only moment we truly control. And it is in this moment that we can find liberation from suffering. Ultimately, the illusion of time is a mental construct that keeps us bound to suffering. By cultivating mindfulness and learning to observe our thoughts without attachment, we can begin to dismantle this illusion. The more we live in the present, the more we can experience the interconnectedness and impermanence of all things. As we let go of our attachment to time, we find ourselves freer, more present, and less burdened by the mental fabrications that keep us stuck in the cycle of suffering. Through this understanding and practice, we can live fully in the moment, liberated from the constraints of time and the suffering it creates.
Chapter 5. The Mindfulness Practice, Transcending Time Through Meditation.
Mindfulness meditation provides a profound way to transcend our conventional understanding of time. By practicing mindfulness of breathing, anapanasati, we create a bridge between our awareness and the present moment. In this practice, we observe the breath, gently guiding our focus to the inhalations and exhalations. As we become more attuned to our breath, we naturally become more attuned to the flow of time itself. The essence of mindfulness meditation lies in its ability to anchor us in the now. When we immerse ourselves in the present, we break free from the constant pull of the past and future, where much of our anxiety and regret reside. The mind often dwells on past mistakes or anticipates future challenges, which distorts our perception of time, making it feel like we are trapped in a never-ending cycle of worry. Through mindful awareness, we can release these mental patterns and connect with the present moment, where time feels fluid and ever-changing. In the depth of meditation, time seems to stretch or even dissolve altogether. This experience, known as time dilation, occurs when the mind reaches a state of deep concentration and awareness. When deeply absorbed in meditation, the brain enters an altered state of consciousness where it becomes less reliant on external stimuli. In this state, time no longer operates with the same urgency or predictability that we experience in our daily lives. Instead, the mind becomes attuned to the essence of the moment, where past and future dissolve into a unified experience of pure presence. Scientific studies on meditation support these subjective experiences. Brainwave patterns during deep meditation show a shift towards slower frequencies, which are linked to states of relaxation and deep focus. This slower frequency of brain activity allows the meditator to enter a state where the concept of time becomes less tangible, further reinforcing the connection between meditation and our perception of time. As we progress in our practice, we begin to notice that the sense of time becomes less relevant. Tasks that once felt burdensome now feel lighter, and moments that used to slip by unnoticed are now full of richness and detail.
This shift in perception is not only a spiritual or psychological experience but also a practical one. Mindfulness teaches us how to be present, and in doing so, we enhance our ability to engage with our lives in a more meaningful way. Time, once an external force pulling us in different directions, transforms into a fluid, dynamic experience that we can navigate with clarity and peace. Through mindfulness meditation, we learn to live more fully in the present, breaking free from the constraints of past regrets and future worries. This practice not only enriches our spiritual journey but also brings a sense of peace and freedom to our everyday lives. As we transcend the linear concept of time, we reconnect with the timeless essence of our being, where true contentment resides.
Chapter 6. The Buddhist View on Time as a Mental Construct.
The Lankavatara Sutra offers a profound insight into the nature of time, suggesting that time is not an objective reality but a mental construct. In this view, time is not something that exists independently of us but rather arises within the consciousness itself. This idea challenges the conventional perception that time flows externally, dictating the pace of our lives. Instead, time, as seen from a Buddhist perspective, is deeply intertwined with the workings of the mind. It is a product of our mental processes, our thoughts, perceptions, and experiences shape and define our relationship with time. Modern neuroscience provides further support for this Buddhist view. Research shows that our brain does not simply passively receive sensory input, but actively constructs our perception of reality, including time. The brain processes information in a nonlinear fashion, creating a sense of continuity and progression that we interpret as time. This suggests that time, as we experience it, is subjective and influenced by our mental states. When we are fully immersed in the present moment, time can seem to expand or contract, demonstrating its fluid and malleable nature. By understanding time as a mental construct, we can begin to transcend the limitations of linear time. We can cultivate an awareness that exists beyond the clock, where the past and future dissolve, leaving only the timeless present. This awareness, rooted in mindfulness and meditation, allows us to experience life more fully, free from the pressures of time's constraints. In this way, we begin to align more closely with the true nature of reality, where time is not a force that governs us, but a mental phenomenon that we can choose to transcend.
Chapter 7. Quantum Buddhism, Bridging Science and Spirituality.
Quantum Buddhism represents a fascinating fusion of ancient spiritual wisdom and cutting-edge scientific understanding, opening up new avenues for exploring the nature of existence. At its core, quantum Buddhism suggests that the principles underlying both quantum mechanics and Buddhist philosophy share a deep resonance, particularly in their understanding of the impermanence and interconnectedness of all things. This convergence is not only intellectually stimulating but offers profound insights into how we perceive reality, time, and the self. In quantum mechanics, one of the most intriguing concepts is quantum superposition. This principle states that a particle can exist in multiple states simultaneously, only collapsing into a single state when observed. The parallels between this idea and Buddhist teachings on potentiality and choice are striking. In Buddhism, there is a concept known as dependent origination, which asserts that all phenomena are interconnected and arise based on various causes and conditions. In the same way, quantum mechanics reveals that the state of a system is not predetermined but rather exists in a field of probabilities, determined by the interactions and choices that unfold in the present moment. This similarity highlights an essential Buddhist insight. The future is not fixed but is instead a realm of possibilities that is continuously shaped by our present actions. Just as quantum particles are in flux, so too are our lives, subject to the interplay of various factors. The Buddhist concept of emptiness, shunyata, which refers to the lack of inherent, unchanging essence in all things,
aligns closely with the idea in quantum physics that particles and forces do not possess a fixed nature but instead exist in a state of constant change and transformation. Both perspectives suggest that our perception of reality is not as stable or fixed as it might seem, but rather is fluid and constantly evolving. Furthermore, the Buddhist practice of mindfulness offers a lens through which we can engage with the present moment more fully. Much like the observer effect in quantum mechanics. In quantum physics, the observer is not a passive entity but plays an active role in shaping the outcome of experiments. Similarly, in Buddhism, mindfulness practice encourages us to be aware of our thoughts, feelings, and actions in real time, thereby influencing the way we experience the world. This active engagement with the present moment aligns with quantum theory's suggestion that the observer has the power to affect the state of the observed. In both quantum mechanics and Buddhist philosophy, there is an understanding that reality is not a fixed, static entity but is instead dynamic, interconnected, and ever-changing. This insight encourages a shift in how we view time. In quantum theory, time is not linear or absolute but relative and interconnected with space, forming what is known as space-time. This view echoes the Buddhist perspective that time, like all phenomena, is impermanent and interconnected, continuously unfolding based on our actions and perceptions. Just as quantum particles exist in a state of superposition until observed, our understanding of time and reality exists in a fluid state, shaped by our consciousness and awareness. Moreover, both quantum physics and Buddhism share a view of the interconnectedness of all things. In quantum mechanics, the concept of entanglement suggests that particles can remain connected, even when separated by vast distances. A change in the state of one particle instantly affects the other, regardless of the distance between them. This phenomenon mirrors the Buddhist notion of interconnectedness, where all beings and phenomena are interdependent. The idea of interdependence is central to Buddhist thought, illustrating that nothing exists in isolation and that all phenomena arise through a network of causes and conditions. This understanding fosters a sense of compassion, as we begin to recognize that our actions and decisions have far-reaching consequences, not only for ourselves but for the entire web of existence. Quantum Buddhism invites us to reconsider the nature of reality, urging us to embrace a more holistic view of existence. It suggests that, much like quantum particles, our lives are not predetermined, but full of possibilities, shaped by the choices we make in the present. By integrating the insights of both quantum physics and Buddhism, we can gain a deeper understanding of the interconnected, impermanent nature of the universe, leading to a profound transformation in how we experience the world and our place within it. This fusion of science and spirituality offers a unique and powerful framework for exploring the mysteries of existence, guiding us towards a more awakened, mindful, and compassionate way of being. In embracing quantum Buddhism, we begin to recognize that our perception of reality is not limited to what we can see and measure but extends beyond the material world into the realm of consciousness, possibility, and interconnectedness. This shift in perspective can lead to a more profound sense of peace, understanding, and harmony, as we navigate the complexities of life, free from the constraints of linear time and the illusion of separation.
Chapter 8. The Power of Timeless Presence.
Zen Buddhism's practice of koans is a unique and profound tool for cultivating timeless awareness. Koans, such as the famous, "What is the sound of one hand clapping?" serve as paradoxical statements that challenge the conventional ways in which we think and perceive the world. They are designed to interrupt the habitual, linear thinking that dominates our daily experience, pushing us beyond our intellectual mind and into a state of direct awareness. The contemplation of these paradoxes can lead to moments of realization, where we encounter reality as it is, free from the constraints of time, concepts, and labels. At the heart of Zen practice is the idea that the true nature of reality can only be experienced directly, beyond the filters of our ordinary perception.
In this direct encounter, time itself becomes irrelevant. When we are deeply engaged with a koan, or when we meditate deeply, the usual flow of thoughts concerning past regrets or future anxieties begins to fade away. What emerges is a profound experience of presence, an awareness of the now that is not bound by any particular moment. It is in this timeless awareness that we touch the essence of existence. Research on deep meditation supports this experience, showing that when the mind settles and the internal narrative is silenced, a sense of timelessness emerges. Studies of brainwave activity during meditation reveal that deep states of mindfulness and concentration are associated with shifts in neural activity, often leading to altered perceptions of time. In these moments, time can feel as though it stretches or collapses, or even disappears entirely. This is not about escaping time or running away from life's responsibilities, but rather about transforming our relationship with time itself. When we live in a state of pure presence, we stop being bound by the past or future, and instead, we can fully embrace the richness of each moment. This timeless presence does not mean that we become detached from the world around us, but rather that we experience life more vividly. We begin to see and feel each moment as it is, without the overlay of judgment, expectation, or memory. Our actions become more aligned with the present, unencumbered by the mental clutter of time. The experience of timelessness opens us to a deeper connection with ourselves and the world around us, allowing us to live more fully and authentically. In this way, Zen Buddhism teaches us that time is not something that controls us, but rather something we can transcend through awareness. By cultivating a state of timeless presence, we free ourselves from the constraints of past and future, and instead, we embrace the eternal now.
Breaking free from the illusion of time.
Buddhism teaches us that the ultimate goal is not to escape time, but to transform our relationship with it. Through practices like mindfulness and meditation, we can learn to experience time as a fluid, interconnected process rather than a fixed, linear progression. By transcending the illusion of time, we free ourselves from the cycle of craving and aversion that causes suffering. In doing so, we can live with greater clarity, compassion, and wisdom, fully engaged in the present moment. As you reflect on the nature of time, consider how your own relationship with time shapes your experience of life. Can you begin to notice the ways in which time is a mental construct, an illusion created by your mind? By recognizing this, you can begin to break free from the tyranny of time and embrace the richness of each moment.